On February 8, 2025, 183 Palestinian prisoners tasted freedom. They were released by Israel as part of a ceasefire deal with Hamas. It was a moment of joy, a flicker of hope in a long and brutal conflict. But the celebration was short-lived. 7 of the released prisoners were immediately rushed to hospitals in Ramallah. Their bodies, weakened and broken, bore the marks of their time in Israeli prisons. The Palestinian Red Crescent confirmed the hospitalizations. They reported that the prisoners arrived in dire need of medical attention. The Palestinian Prisoners Club, a human rights organization, pointed a finger at Israel. They accused Israeli authorities of subjecting the prisoners to brutality. The prisoners' need for immediate medical care, they argued, was a stark testament to the mistreatment they endured. The release of these prisoners was part of a larger exchange. Israel agreed to free 183 Palestinian prisoners in return for 3 Israeli captives held by Hamas. This marked the 5th such exchange since a fragile ceasefire began last month. Negotiations for a more permanent agreement are ongoing. The release and subsequent hospitalization of these prisoners shine a light on a larger issue: the plight of thousands of Palestinians languishing in Israeli jails. Their stories, often untold and unheard, paint a grim picture of life under Israeli detention. Their experiences raise serious questions about human rights, justice, and the true cost of this decades-long conflict. The Palestinian Prisoners Club didn't mince words. They accused Israeli authorities of systematic mistreatment of Palestinian detainees. They cited the poor health of the recently released prisoners as evidence. These men, they argued, were not isolated cases. They were victims of a system designed to break their bodies and spirits. Disturbing reports emerged, detailing the conditions these prisoners allegedly faced: starvation, sleep deprivation, prolonged solitary confinement, denial of basic medical care. These were not just allegations, they were scars etched onto the bodies and minds of the released men. The Palestinian Prisoner Society, another human rights group, added fuel to the fire. They released a report just last week. It detailed horrific accounts from dozens of former Palestinian prisoners. The report was damning. It spoke of rampant scabies infections, a sign of horrific hygiene conditions. It detailed instances of beatings and physical abuse. It painted a picture of systematic medical neglect, with prisoners denied even the most basic medical care. These allegations, if true, constitute grave violations of international law. The international community cannot afford to remain silent. The treatment of prisoners, regardless of their alleged crimes, is a reflection of a nation's commitment to human rights. The evidence emerging from Israeli prisons raises serious concerns. The release of 183 prisoners brought a moment of relief, but it did little to change the bigger picture. Over 4,500 Palestinians remain imprisoned by Israel. Their lives are shrouded in secrecy, their stories rarely heard beyond the prison walls. Their families live with the constant fear and uncertainty that comes with having a loved one in Israeli custody. Among those still imprisoned are 310 Palestinians held under administrative detention. This controversial practice allows Israel to detain individuals without charge or trial. The detainees are often held for indefinite periods, denied access to lawyers and their families. Human rights groups have condemned this practice as cruel and unjust. They argue that it violates fundamental legal principles. One former prisoner, speaking on condition of anonymity, shared his harrowing experience. He described enduring 15 months of relentless torture and inhumane treatment. His story, sadly, is not unique. Countless other Palestinian prisoners have come forward with similar stories. Their accounts paint a grim and disturbing picture of life inside Israeli prisons. These testimonies cannot be ignored. They demand attention. They demand accountability. The international community must pressure Israel to end its inhumane treatment of Palestinian prisoners. The world is watching, and silence is complicity. Basil Faraj, a respected analyst at Birdsight University, offered a sobering perspective. While welcoming the release, he stressed that it doesn't change the reality for Palestinian prisoners. The conditions inside Israeli jails remain brutal, he stated. Palestinians are treated as less than human. His words are a stark reminder that much work remains to be done. Faraj also raised another disturbing point: the high likelihood of rearrests. History, he argued, has shown that Israel often rearrests released prisoners on dubious charges. This cycle of imprisonment and release serves only to perpetuate the conflict and inflict further suffering on the Palestinian people. The fight for justice doesn't end with a prisoner release. It requires dismantling the system that put them there in the first place. The ongoing ceasefire offers a glimmer of hope, a chance for peace. But true and lasting peace requires more than just a cessation of hostilities. It demands justice, equality, and an end to the occupation. It requires addressing the root causes of this decades-long conflict. The road ahead will be long and arduous, but the release of these prisoners, and the stories they carry, serve as a powerful reminder. A reminder that the fight for Palestinian freedom is far from over. It is a fight for human rights, for dignity, and for a future where Palestinians are no longer imprisoned for who they are.